The archival class vessel Eternal Seeker drifted silently at the edge of Sol's heliopause, its quantum sensors drinking in data from the unremarkable yellow star and its planets. Chief Observer Nixis, her crystalline form shifting through shades of deep blue, studied the readings with growing confusion. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice carrying harmonics of disbelief. The data couldn't be correct, yet the quantum-encrypted readings couldn't lie. The third planet, a water-rich world that should have hosted nothing more advanced than simple tool users, was buzzing with electromagnetic emissions and artificial satellites. "Director Vasil," she called out, her crystalline form pulsing with urgency. "You need to see this." The ship's director, an ancient being whose crystalline structure had recorded over 3,000 years of observations, flowed smoothly across the command deck. "What have you found, Observer?" "The inhabitants of Sol 3. They've achieved spaceflight, nuclear fission, and global communications networks. But the timeline." She projected the historical data into the space between them. "They've accomplished this in less than 3 centuries. Director Vasil's form flickered with distress patterns. "Check your instruments. Such acceleration is impossible. Even the Meridian Concordat took 12 centuries to progress from basic tools to atomic theory." "The instruments are functioning perfectly," Nixis insisted. "But there's more. Look at their development pattern." The projected data showed humanity's technological progression as a chaotic, almost random series of advances. Agricultural revolution to industrial revolution to digital revolution, each leap happening orders of magnitude faster than any known species development curve. "They're not following any of the established advancement patterns," Vasil observed, his tone carrying harmonic undertones of concern. "Where's the 1,000-year plateau between metallurgy and mechanization? The 5-century contemplation period between discovering atoms and splitting them?" "They don't seem to have plateaus at all," Nixis replied. "They make intuitive leaps, skipping entire stages of development. It's as if they're guessing at advanced principles and somehow getting them right." A new alert pulsed through the ship's sensors. Nixis quickly processed the incoming data and projected a new hologram. "Director, they've just achieved quantum entanglement communication. But this can't be right. They're using it in ways we never conceived." The hologram showed humans using quantum entanglement not just for communication, but for computing, encryption, and even entertainment. They had taken a fundamental principle of physics and turned it into a consumer technology in less than a decade. "Fascinating and disturbing in equal measure," Vasil mused. "They're like children who have found a quantum reactor, and instead of studying it methodically, they're pressing all the buttons at once, and somehow not destroying themselves in the process." A subordinate observer interrupted with another alert. "Director, we're detecting weapons development as well. They've combined antimatter containment with their primitive chemical propulsion systems. It's crude, unstable, and by all known laws of physics, it shouldn't work. But it does," Nixis finished. "Just like everything else they create. They're breaking rules they don't even know exist." Director Vasil's crystalline form pulsed with decision patterns. "Prepare a full report for the Concordat. Classification: potential type Omega species." Nixis's form flickered with shock. Type Omega was reserved for species that could fundamentally alter the galaxy's balance of power. In 3,000 years of observation, they had never classified a species above type Delta. "Sir," she ventured, "are you certain? They're barely into their space age." "Look at their entertainment broadcasts," Vasil replied, projecting a stream of human science fiction stories. "They're already imagining technologies thousands of years beyond their current capabilities, and given their pattern of development, they'll try to build them," Nixis realized. "And somehow, against all logic, they might succeed." As the Eternal Seeker prepared to return to Concordat space, Nixis added a personal note to her report. "We have discovered something unprecedented. A species that treats the impossible as merely a challenge they haven't overcome yet. They don't climb the ladder of technological progress. They leap from rung to rung." somehow landing safely each time. Their greatest strength isn't their technology, but their ability to imagine possibilities that shouldn't exist and then force reality to accommodate them. The galaxy isn't ready for such chaos, but we may have no choice but to adapt to it. The ship slipped into quantum space, leaving behind a world that had just shattered every certainty they had about the nature of progress. As they departed, Earth's quantum sensors, which should have been decades away from detecting their presence, tracked their quantum wake with perfect accuracy. Humanity had noticed them, and more importantly, humanity had surprised them. It would not be the last time. The grand calculation chamber of the Meridian Concordat blazed with crystalline light as the most advanced artificial intelligence in known space attempted to process the latest data from Earth. The chamber's quantum matrices, capable of modeling the evolution of entire galaxies, were struggling with a far simpler task: predicting what humans would do next. Senior analyst Kassir watched as probability streams fractured and reformed in impossible patterns. His crystalline form shifted through shades of agitation as another simulation collapsed. "Incredible," muttered Dr. Elena Martinez, the human representative to the Concordat. "Your AI is having a nervous breakdown trying to understand us." "This is no laughing matter," Kassir responded, his tone frequencies sharp with frustration. "We've observed 17,000 species achieve spaceflight. Every single one followed predictable patterns of development. But humans," he gestured at the chaos of broken probability streams above them, "you've achieved faster than light travel by accidentally discovering spatial folding while researching breakfast cereal." Elena smiled. The discovery of the Martins-Wong spatial compression field during that cereal manufacturing accident was pretty funny. But it works. "It shouldn't work." Kassir's form pulsed with exasperation. "You compressed space-time using radio waves and cornstarch. Our scientists spent 3 centuries proving that was impossible." "Maybe that's why we succeeded," Elena suggested. "We didn't know it was impossible, so we didn't waste time proving it couldn't be done. We just did it." The chamber's AI suddenly projected a new analysis. It showed humanity's technological development as a tangled web of connections, with innovations in one field spawning seemingly unrelated breakthroughs in others. Medical research into neural interfaces had somehow led to advances in deep space propulsion. A child's toy had inspired a revolution in quantum computing. "Your species makes connections that defy logic," Kassir observed. "It's as if you're playing a game without knowing the rules, and somehow winning anyway." "We know the rules," Elena corrected. "We just don't believe they're set in stone. Rules are more like guidelines to us, starting points for asking, what if?" A new alert pulsed through the chamber. The AI had detected another human breakthrough, this time in the field of energy generation. Kassir's form almost destabilized as he processed the data. "You've developed a way to harvest zero-point energy using modified microwave ovens." His tone carried harmonics of disbelief. "The equipment list includes common household electronics, dental floss, and something called silly putty." Elena examined the projection with professional interest. "Oh, that's Dr. Patel's team in Mumbai. They've been experimenting with quantum field manipulation using consumer electronics. Looks like they finally got it working." "But it's not just working," Kassir protested. "According to these readings, they're achieving efficiency levels our best zero-point extractors can't match, using technology that's effectively held together with adhesive tape and optimism." The chamber's AI suddenly projected a new calculation, one that made every crystalline being in the room pulse with alarm. It showed humanity's probable technological development over the next century. The curve didn't just rise, it went nearly vertical. "This can't be accurate," Kassir insisted. "No species can advance this quickly without destroying themselves." "That's assuming they follow a logical progression," Elena pointed out. "But we don't. When we hit a problem that should destroy us, we don't give up. We get creative. Sometimes literally creative. Do you know how many of our breakthrough technologies were inspired by science fiction stories?" The AI helpfully projected a list. It was disturbingly long. You imagine things that can't exist, Casier said slowly, and then you refuse to accept that they can't exist until you somehow make them exist anyway. Pretty much, Alina agreed. It drives our scientists crazy sometimes. They'll spend years proving something is impossible, only to have some garage inventor achieve it because they didn't read the paper saying it couldn't be done. The chamber's eye suddenly emitted a harsh tone as its predictions reached a critical failure point. The display showed thousands of potential futures for humanity, each more unlikely than the last, yet according to their own observations, all somehow possible. The Concordat must make a decision. Casier announced, his tone grave. Humanity's chaotic innovation poses a potential threat to galactic stability, yet attempting to contain it might be even more dangerous. We've run simulations of technological suppression attempts on your species. And? Alina asked, though her slight smile suggested she already knew the answer. According to our models, trying to restrict human innovation would only make you more creative in finding ways around the restrictions. The probability curves actually show faster technological development under constraints. Alina laughed. Of course they do. Nothing motivates human creativity, quite like someone saying you can't do that. As if to punctuate her point, another alert pulsed through the chamber. Somewhere on Earth, a teenager had just invented a new form of quantum encryption while trying to pass notes in class without their teacher noticing. Casier's form shifted through patterns that in a human might have indicated a headache. The Concordat will have to adapt to humanity's presence in the galaxy. We have no choice. The only thing more dangerous than your chaotic innovation would be attempting to stop it. Smart decision, Alina agreed. Now, would you like to hear about some of our ideas for improving your eye's quantum matrices? We have some thoughts involving bubble wrap and disco music that you might find interesting. The chamber's eye emitted what could only be described as a whimper. The swarm mind of the collective watched through 10,000 compound eyes as their invasion fleet approached the Sol system. Their bioorganic vessels, each the size of a small moon, moved in perfect geometric formation, their hulls pulsing with deadly purpose. Supreme Commander Xetix felt confident. The humans, despite their reputation for unpredictable innovation, were still primitive by galactic standards. Their handful of colonies, their crude faster-than-light drives, their limited military force, all suggested an easy conquest. Begin standard invasion protocol, Xetix commanded through the hive mind. Deploy suppression fields to prevent quantum communications. Launch viral matrices to corrupt their primitive AI systems. Prepare genetic harvesters for specimen collection. The fleet moved into position, their formation a perfect lattice of death. Then everything went wrong. The first sign of trouble came when their suppression fields encountered human quantum communications. Instead of shutting down, the human networks actually grew stronger, somehow using the suppression field itself as an amplifier. Impossible. Xetix broadcast through the hive mind. Their technology is too primitive to. The thought was cut short as human ships suddenly appeared throughout the collective's formation. Not warped in, not accelerated from elsewhere. They simply appeared, as if they'd always been there and had only now decided to become visible. Stealth systems detected, reported a drone mind. They appear to be using modified cloaking technology reverse-engineered from old human entertainment devices, something called video game consoles. Before Xetix could process this absurdity, the human ships opened fire. But instead of conventional weapons, they launched what appeared to be small, ordinary satellites. The collective's threat assessment systems barely registered them as dangerous. That was their second mistake. The first had been invading human space at all. The satellites activated, creating a web of intersecting fields that seemed to violate several laws of physics. Where the fields intersected, space itself became unpredictable. What are they doing? Xetix demanded, feeling the hive mind's growing confusion. These energy patterns make no sense. Through a secure quantum channel, A human voice responded. Oh, that. We call it the probability manipulation grid, or PMG for short. It's amazing what you can do when you combine quantum uncertainty principles with good old-fashioned human chaos theory. The effects became apparent immediately. The collective's perfect formation began to break down as probability itself seemed to turn against them. Ships that should have had a 99.9% chance of successful maneuvers instead failed spectacularly. Weapons with pinpoint accuracy suddenly couldn't hit the broadside of a planet. This defies all known laws of physics. HCTX broadcast in growing panic. You cannot manipulate probability itself. Funny thing about laws, the human voice replied. They're more like guidelines to us, especially the laws of physics. They told us we couldn't manipulate probability, so naturally, we had to try. Turns out, if you throw enough human ingenuity at a problem, even impossible things become merely improbable. And we're pretty good at beating the odds. The collective's viral matrices, designed to corrupt human computer systems, encountered something even more baffling. The humans weren't using conventional computer systems at all, but rather a hybrid network that somehow combined quantum computing with neural interfaces, and most puzzlingly, something they called social media trends. Your viral attacks can't work, the human explained, almost apologetically. You can't corrupt a system that's already chaotic by design. That's why we based our military networks on Twitter arguments. Nothing's more unpredictable than human social interaction. HCTX watched in horror as the collective's mighty fleet was reduced to chaos. Ships collided with each other as probability turned against them. Weapons backfired. The hive mind itself began to fragment as human-generated quantum noise interfered with their telepathic connections. Fall back. HCTX commanded. Full retreat. We cannot combat this level of weirdness. The human suggested helpfully. Yeah, we get that a lot. By the way, those genetic harvesters you brought, we've reprogrammed them. They're now distributing cat videos throughout your hive mind. Enjoy. As the remnants of the collective's fleet flood in disarray, HCTX received one final transmission from the humans. It was a simple text message. Next time, just ask if you want to visit. We'll make coffee. P.S. Your hive mind might experience an inexplicable craving for cheeseburgers. Side effect of the cat videos. Sorry about that. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the last of the collected ships disappear into hyperspace. Her second-in-command, Commander Rodriguez, shook his head in amazement. Did we really just defeat an advanced alien invasion force using modified game consoles, social media algorithms, and cat videos? Chen smiled. The best defense isn't always better technology. Sometimes it's just being so weird that your enemies can't figure out what you're going to do next, even when you don't know yourself. And the probability manipulation grid. Oh, that was just a bunch of satellites broadcasting random noise. The real probability manipulation was convincing them it was possible. Once they believed we could control probability, they started doubting everything. After that, well, psychological warfare works on Highmans too. As cleanup operations began, Chen received a message from the Meridian Concordat. They were simultaneously impressed and disturbed by humanity's latest innovation in warfare, particularly the part about weaponizing cat videos. Should we tell them about the other projects we're working on? Rodriguez asked. Chen thought about the current experiments in quantum memetics, the development of artificial gravity through interpretive dance, and the promising results of the space-time origami program. Let's not. Some things the galaxy isn't ready for yet. In the depths of the Psychic Research Institute on Mars, Dr. Maya Patel stood before an assembly of the galaxy's most powerful telepathic species. Her mind, to their considerable frustration, was completely unreadable. Impossible, declared High Mentor Zixtol of the Ethereal Conclave, their luminescent form flickering with annoyance. No species can naturally resist unified telepathic probing. Maya smiled, tapping her temple. We're not resisting. You just can't make sense of what you're reading. Human minds don't work like yours. The assembled telepaths, representing 12 different species and countless millennia of psychic evolution, shared a collective moment of disbelief. They had been summoned to Mars after reports that human minds were somehow interfering with galactic telepathic networks. "Explain," demanded Zixtal. "Our species has spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of thought communication. We can read the minds of gas giant beings and silicon-based intelligences. Yet human minds, they're like trying to read a book where every word is simultaneously in every language, written backward and on fire." "That's because you're trying to read our surface thoughts," Maya explained. "But humans don't think in straight lines. We've got countless subconscious processes running simultaneously. We can believe contradictory things at once. We dream while we're awake. We have imagination, intuition, and about a dozen cognitive biases, all working at the same time." She projected a diagram showing human neural activity. The telepaths recoiled at the chaos displayed. "Look at this scan," Maya continued. "Right now, I'm simultaneously thinking about quantum physics, wondering what I'll have for lunch, remembering a song from my childhood, planning a surprise party for next month, feeling guilty about not calling my mother, and imagining what a purple elephant riding a unicycle would look like. And that's just the conscious stuff." One of the younger telepaths, a crystalline being named Ixtur, pulsed with curiosity. "But how do you function with such chaos in your minds? How do you maintain coherent thought?" "We don't, always," Maya admitted. "Sometimes we act on impulse, sometimes on careful reasoning, sometimes on pure intuition. We can be logical and emotional at the same time. We make decisions based on facts and feelings simultaneously." She pulled up another display, this one showing the aftermath of the recent conflict with the collective. That's why their hive mind couldn't process our defense strategies. They expected military decisions based on pure logic. Instead, they got humans being, well, human. The display showed battle footage of human ships performing maneuvers that seemed to follow no rational pattern, yet somehow achieved devastating effectiveness. It showed tactical decisions made on hunches that turned out to be right, strategies that worked because they were too absurd to predict. "Your species' mental chaos is spreading," Zixtal accused. "Our telepathic networks are experiencing disturbances, random thoughts, impossible images, something called earworms." Maya tried not to laugh. "Sorry about that. Turns out human consciousness is somewhat contagious. The more you try to read our minds, the more you start thinking like us. Those earworms are just catchy songs that get stuck in your head. Wait until you experience memes." The assembled telepaths shifted uncomfortably. Several had already found themselves inexplicably humming human music or craving earth foods they'd never tasted. "This must be contained," Zixtal declared. "The order of telepathic communication must be preserved." "Good luck with that," Maya said. "You can't contain human consciousness any more than you can contain human creativity. We've already got research teams working on expanding our natural telepathic abilities. Want to see what we've come up with so far?" She activated a prototype device on her wrist. Suddenly, the telepaths were bombarded with a stream of human consciousness. Dreams, memories, random thoughts, creativity, and endless questioning all mixed together in a psychic tsunami of human mental activity. "Turn it off." Several telepaths cried simultaneously. Maya deactivated the device. "That was just a taste," she said. "We call it the mental mosaic transmitter. It lets us broadcast the full spectrum of human consciousness. Still in early testing, of course. The first versions made people taste colors and smell mathematics." Zixtal's luminescent form had dimmed considerably. "Your species, you're not just physically adapting to the galaxy. You're changing the fundamental nature of consciousness itself." "That's what humans do," Maya agreed. "We don't just think outside the box. We forget there was a box in the first place. Now, who wants to help us test our new telepathic social media platform? We're calling it Mindbook. The horrified expressions on the telepaths' faces were answer enough. As the delegation hurriedly departed, Maya received a message from Earth Defense Command. "How did the demonstration go?" Admiral Chen asked. "Just as planned," Maya replied. "They're terrified of trying to read human minds now. Our natural mental chaos is better than any artificial defense system. And the mental mosaic transmitter." Maya grinned. "Oh, that was just a modified white noise generator. The real device is still in development. But they don't need to know that. Sometimes the threat of human weirdness is more effective than the weirdness itself." In the depths of space, the retreating telepaths tried desperately to clear their minds of human thoughts. They failed. Several found themselves wondering what a purple elephant on a unicycle would look like. One started humming, "Never Gonna Give You Up." Humanity had done it again. They hadn't just resisted telepathic intrusion. They turned their mental chaos into a weapon that left the galaxy's most powerful psychics afraid to peek inside human minds. The age of ordered, logical thought was over. The era of human chaos had begun. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concordat hummed with tense energy as representatives from 1,000 civilizations gathered for an unprecedented summit. At the center of attention stood Ambassador Sarah Chen, Earth's representative to the galaxy, facing the Council of Elder Species. The massive chamber, carved from a living crystal moon, reflected the anxiety of its occupants. Some species appeared in physical form, others as holograms or energy patterns, but all focused on the single human standing calmly before them. High Elder Zixus, whose species had achieved spaceflight when humans were still mastering fire, spoke first. "We have gathered to address the situation that humanity presents to galactic stability." "Situation?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "You mean how we've revolutionized quantum physics, redefined the possibilities of consciousness, and turned your carefully ordered galaxy into what you call a chaos zone of infinite improbability?" "Precisely." Zixus's crystalline form pulsed with concern. "In mere centuries, your species has violated nearly every known law of physics, biology, and cosmic development. You've turned impossible theories into working technology. You've infected ordered minds with chaos. You've made the irrational rational." "We prefer to think of it as expanding the possible," Chen replied. "After all, if we can do it, it was never really impossible in the first place, was it?" A holographic entity representing the silicon consciousness flickered with agitation. "Your species treats the fundamental laws of reality as mere suggestions. Last week, a human child accidentally created a temporal paradox while doing homework." "Ah yes," Chen nodded. "Little Priya Kumar. She was trying to find a new way to solve differential equations. The time loop she created actually helped prove some interesting theories about causality. We're calling it the Kumar principle of temporal mathematics. That's exactly our point." The silicon consciousness's projection sparked with frustration. "You turn accidents into innovations, mistakes into discoveries. Your chaos is infectious. Other species are beginning to think like humans." Chen smiled. "Is that really such a bad thing? Since we joined the galactic community, technological development has accelerated across all species. New possibilities are being explored. Old limitations are being questioned. It's destabilizing countless cycles of careful progress." Zixus protested. "The Meridian Concordat reports that some of their younger crystals are experiencing imagination." "The horror," Chen deadpanned. "Next thing you know, they'll be inventing new colors and composing crystal operas." A wave of murmurs swept through the assembly. Several species had, in fact, recently begun exploring artistic expression for the first time in their histories. "This is precisely our concern," Zixus continued. "Your species doesn't just adapt to the galaxy. You force the galaxy to adapt to you. Your chaos theory mathematics have infected our quantum computers. Your dream logic has corrupted our AI systems. Your emotions have contaminated our telepathic networks. Even the collective's hive mind has developed individuality." "Think of it as evolution," Chen suggested. The galaxy was in a state of stable equilibrium. We're just introducing some helpful mutation into the system, stirring the pot, so to speak. And if we were to attempt to contain this mutation, the question came from a shadow being of the Void Conclave. Chen's expression turned serious. You could try, but consider this. Everything we've accomplished so far, we did it while playing nice. Do you really want to see what humans can achieve when we're actually trying to cause trouble? The assembly hall fell silent as the implications sank in. They had all seen the reports. Humans turning warfare into an art form. Humans weaponizing creativity itself. Humans treating the impossible as merely a challenge to overcome. We have reached a decision, Zixus announced after conferring with the other elder species. Humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Concordat, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Thank you. Chen bowed slightly. And the restrictions some members were proposing on human innovation. Withdrawn. Zixus' form shifted through patterns of resignation. We have concluded that attempting to restrict human creativity would be more dangerous than allowing it to develop naturally. Instead, we propose an exchange of knowledge. Your species will help us understand how you achieve the impossible, and we will help guide your development to prevent accidental universe destruction. A reasonable compromise, Chen agreed. Though I should warn you, once you start thinking like humans, there's no going back. You might find yourself enjoying the chaos. As the assembly concluded, Chen received a private message from Earth Defense Command. How did they take the news about Project Infinity? Admiral Rodriguez asked. I didn't tell them, Chen replied. Let's wait until they've adjusted to our current level of impossible before we show them how we've learned to harness parallel universe resonance through interpretive dance. Good call. By the way, that time loop from the Kumar girls' homework. Our scientists think it might have accidentally solved the unified field theory. Chen laughed. Of course it did. Should we tell the Concordat? Let's give them time to process the concept of imagination first. Baby steps. As Chen's transport ship departed the crystal moon, she looked back at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. They had expected to contain humanity's chaos. Instead, they had been forced to accept that the galaxy itself was evolving, becoming more human with each passing day. In the ship's log, she added a final note. The galaxy thought it was getting a new species to add to its carefully ordered hierarchy. Instead, it got humanity. Evolution's wild card, the cosmic chaos factor, the species that treats reality as a work in progress. The next few centuries should be very interesting indeed. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a young meridian crystal began to dream. A hive mind drone wondered about individual consciousness, and a silicon-based AI started to appreciate the beauty of imperfection. The age of order was over. The human era of beautiful chaos had begun.